Hello and welcome to Recharge with Solectria. This is the first of our webinar series, and the topic today we're going to talk about FEOC compliance that you can count on. My name is Jonathan Helmuth. I'm the Director of Sales at Yaskawa Solectria Solar, and with me today is Miles Russell, our Director of Product Management. Miles is responsible for helping design and bring to market all of our Made in America, XGI, PVI, and energy storage inverters. First, we want to talk a little about who Yaskawa Solectria Solar is and who Yaskawa is, and then we'll get into the meat of the webinar about the FEOC and FEOC compliance. So first, Solectria was originally founded and established in 2005 in Lawrence, Massachusetts. That continues to be our headquarters and home, and where we also have all of our engineering offices. And Lawrence, Mass is roughly about 30 minutes north of Boston. So anytime you're in town, please feel free to give us a call and come visit. We changed our name to Yaskawa Solectria Solar after we were acquired by Yaskawa America in 2014. And we've been a part of the Yaskawa family now for over 12 years. In those 21 years of building PV and energy storage inverters here in the United States, we remain committed to delivering the highest quality inverters that we can. We are currently the largest US-based inverter manufacturer of both PV and energy storage inverters, and we have a large product family that I'm going to talk a little bit about. First, one thing we're probably best known for is our Made in America, FEOC compliant, domestic content compliant XGI series of inverters. Those are manufactured in Buffalo Grove, Illinois, and we offer those are true string inverters. They can be either used distributed or in a centralized approach, and we offer 125 to 250 kilowatts. They are at 1500 volts DC and are used in ground mount applications. We also offer a PVI line series. We are a PVI TL line series, which is a very good selling product for us. It's available from 25 to 100 kilowatts, and it is based at 1000 volts DC. So these are traditionally used in rooftop and commercial C&I applications, as opposed to ground mounts. We offer a full line of PV string inverters that you can use with or without our XGI 1500 volt series of inverters, both 250 and 400 amp options, as well as attachable and remote combiner boxes, optional output fusing, various fuse amperages. It's a complete full line. Also all made here in America and FEOC compliant. Next, we have our new XGI 1500 megawatt, 1 megawatt central inverter. This is new for 2026, and we're very excited about bringing back a central inverter to the US market. What is unique about the 1 megawatt is how flexible it is. So out of the box, the 1 megawatt, which by the way, it is configurable from 500 kilowatts to 1 megawatt, can be used as a pure PV inverter. You can use it in a DC coupled environment or as a standalone AC coupled or AC inverter where you charge and discharge from the grid and there's no PV involved. And this is all out of the box, one SKU that can do all three use cases in the market. This can be extremely advantageous for customers when you submit your interconnect application and start designing and developing your project. It can take somewhere from 3 to 5 years so you actually start to build it. And you may not know if you want to DC couple it. In 3 to 5 years, the local state incentives could drastically change, and it makes financial sense to DC couple it. And if you didn't spec in a DC coupled inverter in the first place, you would then have to go resubmit your interconnect application, which adds time and money. So this flexibility really gives our customers a lot of solutions for the future. If you have any interest, would like to learn more about the 1 megawatt, please reach out to us. We'd love to talk more about it, and we are currently selling it. We also have our power racks. These are a powder-coated steel rack where we attach anywhere from 2 to 10 inverters. We pre-wire them to an AC panel board or AC disconnect of your design. And that solution is 100% US content and fully BABA compliant if you have any federal jobs. And also we offer what we call our PVS 500, which is a 500 kilowatt DC coupled energy storage system, which we've had out for about 4 years as well. The difference between the two DC coupled storage solutions we offer is the PVS 500 is a string-based DC storage solution, which is somewhat unique in the industry. Almost everyone in the industry uses a central inverter for their DC coupled. And there's obviously advantages of a string inverter solution. And then we offer a central inverter DC coupled solution as well. So depending on how you want to build your system, we give a lot of flexibility. A little bit more about Yaskawa and who Yaskawa is worldwide. So Yaskawa is a Japanese company that was founded in 1915. So over 110 years old, publicly traded on the Japanese stock exchange. Roughly around 15,000 employees worldwide. And currently we have sales and service as well as manufacturing in over 30 countries. So truly a global company. And you can see that, 25 million servo motors, 35 million VFDs or variable frequency drives, 6,000 robots. And you can also see the yearly rate of what we manufacture as well. So with that said, I'm going to hand the webinar over to Miles, and we're going to learn about FEOC, which is Foreign Entity of Concern, how we got here, and where we are today. So Miles, all yours.
Thank you, Jonathan. Foreign Entity of Concern, or FEOC, is something that I'll be telling you about the current status today of the regulations and requirements. But I'm going to start with the Inflation Reduction Act, which came around in August 22, and that's because FEOC first came across my radar in that legislation. It's only restricted or only applicable to the batteries in electric vehicles and their contents and critical minerals, such that the vehicles had to be qualified so that purchasers could obtain that $7,500 tax credit. Now that's gone by the boards, but I mentioned this only because FEOC was first introduced there, as far as I could see, but not in any way, shape, or form related to renewable energy. What really the Inflation Reduction Act brought was these important tax credits that have energized our industry over the past several years. There's the extension of the investment tax credit at 30%. There's this incentive to work with domestically made components in your system, the 10% bonus to the ITC with sufficient required domestic content. There's another incentive for domestic manufacturers called the Advanced Manufacturing Production Credit, the 45X, for manufacturers of components in the US. For facility owners, not only is there the ITC, but there's the Clean Energy Production Tax Credit, the PTC. So all told, these have been very valuable to our industry and helped with the growth we've all experienced over the last several years. Now, we didn't really know how to apply for this 10% bonus credit and what the domestic content requirements were and how to go about that for about 6 months until the IRS issued their first notice, 2023-38, in May of 23. This document provided the initial rules for calculating the domestic content, established the threshold value that was required to qualify for that 10% bonus credit at 40%. It is now 50% domestic content in 2026 required, but it's calculated for a project by combining the domestic content for what are called the applicable project components, the PV module, inverter, and tracker. And so what you're seeing in the table on the right is a breakdown for the different inverter series that Jonathan was describing, our XGI 1500s, and the domestic content calculated based on their bill of materials. And so that's the kind of information that a project would need to obtain from us and from the tracker manufacturer and from the module manufacturer. But it's not just that percentage domestic content, it's the factors that are involved in that calculation. So the IRS received many comments and feedback on this initial approach from manufacturers like us and others. because it requires us to reveal sensitive, confidential information. So they heard that. And about a year later, in May of 2024, the second IRS notice, 2024-41, came about, and it changed up the approach for calculating domestic content using this new elective safe harbor method. So the calculation in this case is done by combining the safe harbor percentages for those same applicable project components, the module, the inverter, and the tracker. And I'm showing you in the table here the breakdown for the inverter. And what you see here is that there are sub-components or sub-elements defined for the inverter. There are 5 of them: circuit boards, electrical parts, and so forth. And for each one of those sub-components, there's an assigned safe harbor percentage. And the way this works is you can qualify for that safe harbor percentage for any of those sub-circuit or sub-component categories if 100% of the components that are in that category are made in the United States. So it's an all or nothing kind of approach for each of these categories. So we go through there and determine which ones we qualify for, add it all up, and you can see the percent at the bottom there for the XGI 1500s. Now, what you notice and what we've noticed is that this isn't a very level landscape, because the PV module is able to provide up to 66+%, and the inverter and tracker far less. So once again, the IRS received many comments, including from yours truly, about this particular approach. They did not pay attention, however, but in 2025, in January, about 1 year ago, the third notice came out from the IRS, 2025-08, and it's still a safe harbor percentage approach where it's added for those same applicable project components, the module, inverter, and tracker. All that was done is new categories were defined, such as ground mount tracking, ground mount fixed, what modules you're using, and so on and so forth, and then slight adjustment to the percentages that were assigned to these categories. But basically, it's the same approach. So that brings us up to 2025, 1 year ago, right on the threshold of what has been major change, which came about in July of 2026, or sorry, July of 2025, with the passage of the OB-BBA Act and the IRS notice that came immediately afterward in August 2025-42. And really what this new legislation has done is accelerate the termination of these tax credits. And it imposes deadlines on when the project is placed in service. Specifically, if a project begins construction after July 4th, 2026, the system must be placed in service by the end of 2027 in order to qualify for the tax credits. If a project begins construction before July of 2026, it still may qualify for a 4-year safe harbor period and could be placed in service as late as the end of 2030. So that's a very important date for projects to begin construction by. But regardless of when the project begins construction, all projects that begin construction after December 31st of 2025 must meet these new foreign entity of concern rules. The OB-BBA provided us with the term prohibited foreign entities, or PFE. And there are 2 types of PFEs. The first is a specified foreign entity, or an SFE. First of all, the covered nations are China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. And really, it's China we're talking about, because Russia, North Korea, and Iran are not players in the solar markets in the US. And you would be an SFE, for example, if you were an element of the government of any of those countries that's got an office in the United States, If you were a Chinese military company, Huawei, I think, was in this category. Or if you're an entity that's subject to the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act restrictions, you would be an SFE. Specific companies are called out in the battery manufacturing arena, such as CATL. And then there's sort of a catch-all subcategory called foreign controlled entities, or FCEs, because we never have enough acronyms, in federal legislation. FCEs would be any company that's got any entity that has its headquarters in any of those covered nations. So maybe you're not an SFE, but if you have a person from an SFE that is on your board or a member of your staff, you could be a foreign influenced entity, an FIE. Or if an SFE has investment in your company, you would be considered an FIE. Or if you have borrowed money from an SFE, you would be considered an FIE. And if there's effective control by an SFE, which means maybe you've licensed technology or licensed the factory or something like that. In any case, specified foreign entities and foreign influenced entities, SFEs and FIEs, are disqualified and absolutely cannot receive the investment tax credit, the PTC, or the manufacturing credit. I don't need to tell you this, but I want to be absolutely crystal clear. Yaskawa Solectria Solar and Yaskawa America are US-based companies, and in no way, shape, or form are we either an SFE or an FIE. So let me get that out of the way. There's a second element to the OB/BBA restrictions that have come along, and this one is called the Material Assistance Rules. And basically, now you're not a PFE, but any project can be disqualified from the tax credits if there's too much content from a PFE in the project. So that begs the question of how much is too much and how do you figure this all out? That introduces yet another metric, and it is called the Material Assistance Cost Ratio, MACR. So basically, the intent of this approach is that a project would be unqualified. That is, it would be deemed to have received material assistance from a PFE if the Material Assistance Cost Ratio, MACR, of the modules, the inverter, and the tracker or rack fall below a specified threshold. So this table shows a number of different facility types. The one I want to focus on is the first row, solar. And at stake here is the investment tax credit and the production tax credit. The threshold for non-PFE content is 40% in 2026. It ratchets up 5% annually until it gets to 60% in 2030 and stays there beyond. But keep in mind that the year that applies is when the project is placed in service. So for example, if you break ground, if you begin construction before July of 2026 and qualify for that 4-year safe harbor period, planning to turn that system on, place that system in service in 2030, you would need to ensure that it has at least 60% non-PFE content or a 60% MACR or greater. I think it's worth noting at this point that we have been promised additional guidance from the IRS. Yet another, yet another notice is forthcoming to clarify calculation of the MACR, and that's due at any time now in 2026, and we'll be keeping our eyes out for that. Meanwhile, I'm showing here the XGI 1500-166 series, and there are 3 families within this series. The models were introduced initially 7 years ago, And as Jonathan laid out, they're from 125 to 166 kilowatts. These are all 600 volt. The second family there is the Dash A. Those have arc fault detection, arc fault protection, which came about when the Underwriters Laboratory updated their standard. We added that series. We also have the Dash 3S. Those are the models that we apply specifically for our DC coupled energy storage system, the PVS 500. And in that last column, you can see the MACR for these models, or the percent of non-PFE content, well above 80%. And these provide assurance that these products will meet and exceed with a comfortable margin the required value of the MACR to qualify for the tax credits way out even in 2030. This is the our current flagship models, the XGI 1500-250 series, which we introduced about 3.5 years ago. Two of these models are at 600 volts AC and two are at 480 volts AC. We also have the DCG. DCG, by the way, stands for DC ground or grounded, and that's because that's the configuration of these models, unlike the others. And the reason we do that, and the reason we have this family of models, is because it prevents potential induced degradation in modules like the CAD Telluride thin film modules from First Solar that are US made, by the way. It prevents and eliminates potential induced degradation for any module that suffers from PID. So that's what those are for, and they're a very good match with First Solar. And you can see that the non-PFE content, or the MACR, is north of, say, 86%. So once again, very comfortable margin to ensure that you would qualify for the tax credits. So to conclude and wrap this up, we can provide, and we're happy to help our partners meet all these requirements, qualify for the tax credits and the 10% bonus credit, and can provide certified, signed, and dated documentation of our domestic content so that you qualify for that ITC 10% bonus credit, no matter which of the IRS approaches you take. We can also provide the domestic content for inverter products so that you meet BABA requirements. BABA require for any infrastructure type project that has federal investment, there's a requirement for compliance with BABA, Build America, Buy America, which means 55% minimum domestic content. And we have inverter products that can meet that requirement, specifically our power racks that Jonathan mentioned, have 100% domestic content. We can also certify that our company is not an SFE or an FIE, as I mentioned earlier. And you might want that documentation in your records to help with your qualification to participate in the tax credits and meet the OB, BBA, and TFE restrictions. And of course, we can also provide the material assistance cost ratio for our inverter products, as you just showed in the prior slides. And that will help you qualify with certainty for the ITC and PTC under these new restrictions. Jonathan, back to you.
Thank you, Miles. So in addition to our products, we offer a few things that set us apart in the industry. So all of our XGI series of inverters, both the string inverters and the new 1 megawatt, are all designed to have a spare parts kit. And that spare parts kit fixes over 80% of in-field failures. So it can be very advantageous for our customers to pick those up. Also, what makes us somewhat different is we offer in-person training, both at our Lawrence headquarters as well as in Illinois at our headquarters there, right, the Yaskawa headquarters there. It's roughly a 3-day class, and it is full in-depth, hands-on. You learn about how to service the inverter, how to perform O&M, how to set up networking, firewalls, clusters, how to work with your third-party data acquisition systems. They're very popular. They're again a full 3-day class. There's a lot to learn. You walk away with a big binder full of information, and also you have access to all of our e-learning modules, our webinars. There's also an online portal similar to YouTube where you can see a number of videos showing how to service the inverter and the various components. There's customer-facing instructions and documentation. So it's a real whole ecosystem of how to service the inverter. And it's one thing our customers really like about us and the product, and one thing that really sets us apart in the industry. Most of the rest of the industry is either a rip and replace model for the string inverters, or for central inverters that the only person who can service them or perform other operations on them is a factory certified technician. So we put a lot of ability in our customers' hands for their own uptime and ability to, again, just service the inverter for third-party O&M companies to be able to perform their O&M operations and maintenance. And again, highly recommend you check it out or learn a little bit more about it. If you go to our website, there's a training tab, and it goes into a lot of detail about what you end up getting educated on. In the top left there, that is Bon Boskar, one of our trainers, who's an excellent source of knowledge. So again, highly recommend you check out the various in-person training and online training options. Please join us for our next session. Obviously, this was about FEOC compliance. The next one we're going to have is going to be in March, which is going to be about inverter fault resolution. So that's actually going to be given by our technical support team, the same people who you would call up if you had to resolve any issues. So highly recommend that. I think it's going to be extremely educational and of great value. Next, working safely around solar inverters in May. One bus, many benefits, just demystifying DC coupled energy storage systems. That'll be in July, I believe. Gwendolyn Espy, who's our one of our or handles all of our energy storage and is a product manager for the energy storage product line. And then we have a couple other topics where we haven't announced yet. There's a lot of topics we want to talk about, but we want to make sure they're the most appropriate for our customers and what's currently going on in the industry. All of us have been on the solar coaster and know things can change pretty quickly. So, but we'll announce those sessions pretty quickly. With that, I want to know if anyone has any questions that they'd like to ask us, Miles or myself. Please feel free. All right, we got one here. What is the lead time on the XGI 1500 volt inverters? That is an excellent question. Our current lead time for loose inverters or just single inverters is 3 months. And then for our assemblies, so the power racks, the PVS 500 DC coupled solution, and the 1 megawatt central inverter, that is all at a 6-month lead time currently. We are working to pull those in. All right, we've got another question here. What is the capacity of the factory in megawatts per year for the XGI 1500? So our current capacity is 2 gigawatts. We are currently expanding that and hope to reach 5 gigawatts in the near future. We'll be doing some expansion at our Franklin facility to enable that to happen. All right, no more questions. That means Miles, you did a great job explaining FEOC. So just wanted to thank everyone for taking the time to learn with us today and to be with us for our first Recharge with Solectria webinar series. So really appreciate all your time, and we look forward to seeing you at the next industry event. Speaking of which, we will all be at RE Plus Boston next week. So we really hope to see a lot of you there, and obviously shake hands, see old friends, and make new ones. It's always nice to put a face to a name or a voice to a face. And also, again, see us at the next Recharge webinar. So again, thank you all for your time today. Have a great rest of your day, rest of your week, and we look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you. Goodbye.